Well, I'm in the process of moving, but I still got time to make a review. Anyways, here's the new backdrop. Probably get some time taking used to. Just consider it season 2. How about that, huh? Anyways, this is what the new place looks like. It's, not finished packing, but I kind of like how small and cozy it feels. But I do gotta say, there is one problem I have with this place. It's actually not this room, it's the outside. And notice if you can figure out how similar it is to a specific game. Beast Wars! Yep, Rise of the Beast coming out. And you know what? I've been kind of disappointed with Legacy Evolution. It's not like bad, but there hasn't been any figures that I really liked. Except for this one. And this one. And this one. And actually, this one doesn't count. I haven't gotten it yet. But there are 2 lines that I am very interested in completing. Rise of the Beast Studio Series and the main line. Haven't gotten anything from the main line, unless you count these 2. But the Studio Series so far has been pretty good. Yeah, it's been pretty good. So I wanted to review all of the Rise of the Beast Studio Series figures that I get. And I got Cheetor, Airazor, as well as these 2 little Battle Masters. I guess we'll start with most simplistic and work our way up from there. How about that? Yep. This fucking space is cramped. Holy crap. These are basically just tiny little animals with the most basic of articulation. But they have like 1 or 2 steps to make them transform. And this is my favorite thing to do with these figures. You flip this around and... oh no, dude, it's like something out of a Trevor Henderson series. Oh, this is terrifying. Actually... Does this remind anyone else of that old Lost Creepypasta camera heads? No? I'm just really autistic? Okay. Speaking of which, back when I played Super Smash Brothers for serious, I had a Smash crew called MCB. Now, I called it Macho Crocodilian Brothers because crocodiles are my favorite animals. In actuality, that was a code name, and it really stood for Masturbating Cheetor Brothers. Because of this toy. Stop slapping your penis, shit! Maybe not the best name for a kid's game, but you know what? Not even the most offensive thing in the community, so yeah. All jokes aside, I love alligators, and I love this little guy. He has very simple articulation. You can open his mouth, which is very important. It's got ball joints in the legs. And does this really count as... It just looks like an alligator being held really awkwardly by a person. There's something about this figure that reminds me of, I don't know what it is, but it's Cretaceous and Maelstrom from Ice Age 2, especially their Happy Meal toys. Am I the only one who gets that? Am I the only one? Why am I asking that? Of course I am. Cheetah's here, and I actually do think this is supposed to be Cheetor, is of course a cheetah, and this one's way more accurate when it comes to the anatomy of a cheetah than the Studio Series, but this one actually has to transform into a bot, so that makes sense. He's very slim, he's very lean, and he's very fit. So yeah, he's a pretty good cheetah. Here's the problem, though. Cheetahs fucking suck. They're the lamest animals in the animal kingdom. Maybe other than this one. They're very scrawny. They're not even effective. They literally have to have dogs to breed in zoo because they have so much anxiety. These things suck!
They're fast, all right. You chose a good form.
Why would I ever want to be a cheetah when I can be a leopard or a jaguar, which look almost the same except they're actually cool because One climbs trees, and the other one swims and eats fucking gators. Gators! Now that I think about it, Cayman actually have it pretty bad too, so maybe this is a good pairing. Speaking of pairing, what I personally do is I pair this one up with Cheetor because, well, obviously, and with this one because, well, I mean, Airazor, not really a gator, but she's pretty cool, like a gator, and, well, birds and gators do have a little bit of similarity. They have a bit of a relationship. Probably not like this, though. Let's get these guys transformed. I already pretty much did it. One thing I do like about this one is even though it's more simplistic, there's a peg that's obvious and in plain sight, but it hides away perfectly, but you can use it for the transformers to hold it. That's kind of nice, but you just kind of fold the legs up like that. And there you go. And he's very simple. You just do this. Yeah, that just plugs in. And there you go. So of the two, and I'm not trying to be biased because of my love for alligators and my hatred for cheetahs, but yeah, this one's way more effective. It actually looks like a gun, and only has a couple of gator stuff, like all the scales and the feet, which they don't even really affect the silhouette in any ways, whereas this is just, fuck! This is like a sword, I think? It just has these legs that are very obviously there. I mean, they're not a part of the silhouette, but they're just way bigger. And it's also at this weird slant. I don't know what it is. Maybe I didn't push it in all the way, but... Oh, there you go. Well, that changes everything, doesn't it? I'm not going to make that joke for another 5 years. So these are not all the Battle Masters, but just the ones I have right now, and they're pretty good. If I had to pick a favorite, it would obviously be the Gator. I'm also not going to rank these, because they're like $5 toys. They don't deserve this. But that won't stop me from ranking $1 figures released by fucking McDonkeys. So there's my credibility out the window.
I'm pissed off about Asia joking about Salvatore Jr. not being mine. I don't think that's very funny.
Alright, on to the main course themselves. The Studio Series Airazor and Cheetor. That might be surprising because I really like Airazor, but I don't like Cheetor. At least compared to the rest of the Beast Wars characters, I do like Cheetor. But there's actually one that I do prefer vastly over the other. It's actually Cheetor. I'm not a particular fan of this figure, so let's just go over it. So actually in alt mode, she's pretty good. I know some people complained about her undercarriage, but I feel like these missiles do a good job of hiding the arms a decent amount, and the wing silhouette blocks the side view a good portion. The legs are a little bit awkward and weird and unnatural looking, but they don't really look too bad. This figure is also pretty huge. I guess it's to make the wings a lot thicker so they don't loosen up like the Kingdom figure does, because, yeah, this is pretty much just like a remake of the Kingdom figure. I wouldn't say remold and repaint because pretty much all the parts are brand new, but it's the exact same figure. Just not as good, spoiler alert. But with her being bigger, it kind of reminds me how she was in the show, because she was kind of oversized. And now you can have the lady ride the tiger, or in this case, cheetah. That's less romantic. Fuck it. Why can't I do this anymore? Why can't I do... There you go. There. Here's a pretty fair comparison between the new Studio Series and the Kingdom, and yeah, they're pretty much identical figures, but they do a couple of things a little differently. Mostly with the feet, and also the weapons. The weapons are, on the legs here. You have to take them off and put them back on. Don't have to do that with this one. You do have to rotate them around, but because of the way the legs plug in now, where it actually is a lot more satisfying than on this one, where it just kind of awkwardly and uncomfortably plugs in. This one is nice and satisfying. It just kind of slots in there like that. It leaves a little bit more space over here and gives her a bit more of a taller silhouette. It just looks a lot better than this one. Oh, and also, she just looks kind of pathetic. She's got this tiny little ass bird head, and I guess it is fairly accurate, but it also just makes her look really corny. I'm not lying, this almost looks as goofy as she did from the original show. And that's saying something. She looked like the bird character from Stuart Little. What was it, 1? 3? I don't know, I haven't watched Stuart Little in like 20 years. There's also a much better color imbalance where you got a bunch of the bright oranges and yellows right here, and you can even see the head a lot better. It just has a pretty bad undercarriage, whereas this doesn't look too bad. The colors are all pretty much the same, so it looks a lot more uniform. Quite nice. Though I do have to say, I'm not a big fan of the wings. They're like this robotic type effect going on, and only the tips are colored, but not this, and it just kind of looks weird. I would have preferred a bit more consistency over just, oh, they put a little bit of detail, but because there's no detail on this one, it just kind of looks out of place and kind of like shit. Whereas this one, it doesn't really have that. It still looks nice because the molding is really, really good. So yeah, of the two bird modes, I actually do prefer the Studio Series to the Kingdom one. The Kingdom one isn't bad by any means, but it just looks like a robot taking a squat with like a bird head. Looks kind of cursed. Whereas this actually looks like a bird, but it still has really long legs and it's popping a weird squat. And now we get to Cheetor, who's a really, really big cheetah. I don't know why they decided to make him a Voyager, probably because he's going to be big in the movie, and I don't get why he's going to be so big in the movie. He's a cheetah. He looks more like a jaguar. But honestly, for some reason, I kind of dig it. I don't know why, but Cheetor as a Voyager just really sticks with me. And it overall does look very nice. It's got the slender look to it. Maybe not as much as the Battle Master, which looks much more like a cheetah, but it still has this elegance of grace to it. If I do have to criticize this mode, I do have to say that the head looks a little on the oversized side. I don't know what it is, but, you know, from some angles it looks pretty good, but then from the front it just kind of looks... It's got the eyeliner, though. That's pretty accurate, right? The other bits is that his hands just kind of obviously are right there. Don't love that. You can also see his feet, but, well, they don't really look like feet, so that's not as much of an issue. Yet, really the only issue I have with this figure is the articulation. Nothing at the shoulders. Absolutely nothing. I mean, you get a little bit here, but that's about it. I mean, you can move the legs so you can, I don't know, have him pee. But other than that, it's mostly just static. I guess I also forgot to talk about articulation with the Airazor. Head. Really loose beak. Can also move up and down. Got a bunch of wing joints which aren't as loose as the Kingdom one, although mine isn't really that bad. But on the flip side, some of the joints are just fucking... Yeah, they're not fun to move. You also can move these out a little bit so you can have her wings spread out, or like she's roosting. Although I don't really recommend the roosting pose because it just looks really unnatural. Kind of reminds me of that old Animorphs Tobias figure. Anyone remember that? God, I hope not. You can also move the legs forward and back and ball joints and hinge. You know, the works. Not bad articulation. Ironically enough, better than Cheetor, who has just a head rotation, jaw articulation, but much nicer. Legs can go forward that far and also bend right there, and you can move the paws. So, behold, the one pose you can get Cheetor in. Wonderful. It's better than nothing. He's got a couple of joints in the hind legs, mostly at the base. You can undo that if you want. It's also that, and then that, but that doesn't fold any farther. So, you know, just not that great. You do have a couple of joints at the base of the tail. Nothing in the actual tail. That's okay with me. So in terms of alt modes, Airazors, I don't know if it's better than Cheetor's. I do like the overall look of Cheetor. It does look really nicely detailed. But I will say that this one is a lot better than the Kingdom version, at least in alt mode. Oh, before I forget, Cheetor can do this for weapon storage. Cool. Doesn't look that great. It's not even symmetrical, but cool. Alright, let's just get to transformation. You gotta get this just right, so it's folded like that, so you can fold this in. And this actually prevents the tail from moving out, so you can get a more compressed look. But despite the fact that it doesn't really look too much of a difference. It's actually pretty specific. So that wasn't too bad of a transformation, pretty simplistic, like the Kingdom Airazor figure, right? Well, getting it back into bird mode, a little less fun. You gotta be a bit more specific than you'd think. I'm mostly having it like this weird arc. I'll show you why in just a second. To actually unpeg the back, you do need to fold out the tail, which I showed in the previous transformation. And now we gotta move this out. Sounds pretty easy, but it's actually fairly difficult. There we go. Make sure this is back far enough so you can switch this around. And the cool thing is that these feathers actually stop it from going any further because they push against this chest piece. That's actually kind of cool. It's kind of a pain to plug that in, a lot harder than you'd think. Alright, so for getting these arms into here, it's not as clear as it is on the Kingdom figure. It's also a little bit more difficult. What I like to do is have this curved a little bit, and then once it's in there, push it so it's straight. And despite having no feedback from here, on the top, you can actually see when it's lined up against that half circle. And finally, plug these in. A lot better of a plug than you would expect. Oh, and I guess we might as well do this, right? Make sure that when it's in alt mode, it's going to be like this in alt mode. Make sure that this is folded down and that this is all the way down so that it actually can plug into place. Like I said, make sure that this is out and this is folded up. You can do this, but you're gonna have to pop it down afterwards. So for the arm segment, just remember that the peg faces outwards, this goes around, and this flips up like that. Make sure that this is lined up with either of the shoulders and get that plugged in before doing the other arm. That'll tab in, but it's not really that effective. And there we go. Transformation done. That wasn't so hard, right?
I think I just shit myself.
Airazor's is fundamentally simple, but it is a little bit obnoxious in a couple of areas, especially that waist and folding the wings up. Meanwhile, Cheetor is all nice and smooth, and while he is also pretty simplistic, he also has some pretty neat details. I'm talking about the shins folding all the way up to become the back of the thighs, and the way that both of the heads integrate into the body. Pretty fun stuff. And here we have the robot modes. Let's start with Airazor again first. Once again, it's very clear that this is based off of the Kingdom figure, except one thing. Ugh! This girl's ugly!
Oh man.
I seriously hope this is based off of concept art and she doesn't actually look like this in the movie. Please tell me she's not going to look like this, right? If we compare the Studio Series with the Kingdom figure, the design is night and day. Just look at this Kingdom design. It's so adorable. She's got this nice face. The bird details is a nice and interesting complementary design. She almost looks like she's got gloves. She has feet that actually look like feet instead of whatever the hell this is. And despite this color scheme being kinda doo-doo, because for some reason, Transformers and Hasbro are obsessed with making Airazor brown, a poop beige brown, might I add, even though we already have 2 brown Maximals and a gray one. Now, let's make her this instead of black, like she was in the show. I mean, seriously, when it comes to modern Beast Wars representation, it's almost always show-related. Why is Airazor brown? I don't know. Even putting that aside, the colors are nice. Brown, orange, gold, and even a purple face. Pretty!
She's cute, loving, and needs a kiss or a hug.
But then you got this design. She's got this goofy-ass, wrinkly Michael Bay face. The colors are this weird, same beige, as well as this puke gold. Kind of makes her look like an Aquaman character. Also, the only reason she's taller than the Kingdom Airazor is because they decided to make her all leg. Why does a queen like this isn't a fucking queen, have to have so much leg? Compare that with her puny little arms. I don't get it. It's basically the same design, but worse. It's not even because I hate live-action adaptations of the character. They had the mainline version, which I haven't got yet, and that actually is a really cool update. I wish it looked like that instead of this. As for her weapons, it's just these. It's the Kingdom ones, but tinier and worse. Seriously, how are you going to give her tinier guns when she's a bigger character? Just kind of weird. Oh, and also, if you're getting this figure, be aware, they don't put the weapons in the tissue. They put it in the cardboard, so before you throw it out, just make sure you get the weapons out. I almost threw them out, and I thought they just didn't give me the weapons. So instead, I just give her the Gator gun. Looks a lot better when she has this. I don't know, you compare the two, one just looks incredibly graceful and a really nice design, whereas the other one looks like that one character from Hellboy. I will give this figure one thing, though. I like the body. Yeah, the backpack is kind of a mess, but when it comes to the actual body, it all looks so connected and natural, like an actual body, which is a really cool detail when Transformers have that. Compare that with the Kingdom one, which looks all separated and awkward. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I do appreciate like the 3D-ness of this body piece, whereas this is just kind of a panel that goes over this, which is underneath all this. You know what I'm saying? Whereas this, it looks all natural and seamless, unless the waist gets out of place. Wait, is it? Oh, no, it's just kind of a shitty design. Never mind, I take it all back. In terms of articulation, she's got a ball joint in the head that can look back and forth. Not really up and down, it's just back and forth. Shoulders that are actually on a ball joint, which I guess it's kind of nice that these don't have to fold out, which, I mean, this can be kind of annoying when you're doing it on this figure. But I kind of like the shoulder blade design. I think it really adds to the design, whereas that just looks kind of dumb. Despite having the ball joint in the shoulder, she does have a bend in the elbow with the swivel. So no Hasbro. Well, actually, yeah, that is the Hasbro joint. Never mind. I guess it is better than a ball joint, right? She has this weird joint that's mostly just for the transformation. Very minor waist swivel, unless you want to unpeg the tail, but you also have to untab this. Just kind of a mess. Whereas even if you don't do that with this figure, perfect waist swivel. Kind of annoying. Legs go forward that far and back that far, and they go out that far, so pretty good. Very tight thigh swivel, and a really nice knee bend, I'll give her that. Also, I like the feather details here. I don't know what it is, but it reminds me of an Archaeopteryx. Dude, this thing reminds me of an Archaeopteryx. Just everything fucking does nowadays, doesn't it? And she has the same ball joint at the legs. You can also fold these out if you want. Just kind of looks messy. Don't really like this aesthetic nearly as much as this one, where it just looks like the wings have been shrunken down, but still look like wings. These just look kind of oversized and just awkward. Supposability is decent. Nothing too out of the ordinary. I mean, there's a couple of joints that aren't that great, like the waist, but you know what? All things considered, not too bad. And that's this figure. Not too bad. It's a good toy, but it just took an already great one and just made it more realistic and look shitty. I'll give her this. The alt mode's pretty good, but the robot mode is just kind of ugly, and the engineering's just this one, but a little more annoying in some places. Not to mention that it's not exactly what I would call a new figure, and yeah, Studio Series Airazor's just kinda good. But not as good as what Transformers usually puts out nowadays. Alright, enough of that crappy girl boss shit. Let's get to the king shit. Side note, if you ever say queen shit or king shit and you aren't referring to a dude who's depressed, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Anyways, this Cheetor is really cool. I like the design of this. It's not exactly what I'd call faithful, but you know what? I'm not that mad about it. Cheetor's design has always been kind of eh, and this is a pretty cool update on it. It kind of reminds me more of his Transmetal and Transmetal 2 designs, which I think are way better than his original, which just looks kind of average. This seems like it's supposed to be a grown-up Cheetor, and, well, I have some thoughts on it. If you're not going to do Cheetor's personality, which is why people like him, what's the point? Both this and Kingdom seem like they're just taking the characters, not understanding why people like them, just being like, no, here's a new personality to them. Here's Cheetor, he's just kind of an average soldier. He's not really the Cheetor you know and love. And you know what? If you're going to do that, can you at least do one of the non-show characters? Like, Cheetor sucks. His robot mode looks goofy, and he turns into a cheetah. Tigatron sucks. He's the same thing, but a little bigger and white and green. The only reason why I like seeing those characters is because their personalities are cool. When you strip that away from them, why not just make the character Wolfang, or Razor Beast, or Bone Crusher, or Baboom, or any of the other characters? Do something interesting. It's still Beast Wars. Beast Wars is cool, not just because of the character writing, but also they turn into animals. So why not take advantage of that by doing something a little bit more interesting than a cat and another cat? Because at that point, if you're not going to use the personalities, you're just using it for nostalgia. Alright, enough whining about that. Now let's talk about why this thing's kind of cool. I really like the physique of this guy. I like how big and broad he looks, though I gotta say, he's got some pretty pathetic feet. I mean, like, he's got these big heels. It would be one thing if these were long and actually looked like feet, but they don't. They're so stubby and... Wait a minute. Big brawn body, tiny little feet, catbot. This guy's just my Smash main. Well, I guess there's more of a reason to like him. Speaking of referencing characters that I like, he also has these weird Wolverine claws, which, you know, it's kind of a lazy thing. But you know what? It's the good kind of lazy. Which is just me. But what I mean by that is I don't really mind this, because it looks cool. So yeah. When it comes to weapons, he doesn't have the tail that's just kind of on here. And I guess that's my one issue with this figure, at least when it comes to the robot mode. It's got this stupid butt flap, and then the tail is just kind of on the back. I don't know what else they could have done, but I feel like they could have found a way to, like, I don't know, turn it around and fold it upwards, and then the tail can fold backwards. Well, can't really do that, but they could have figured out a way, probably. Yes, I am a toy designer, so obviously I know what they can and can't do. So instead of using the tail, he actually has sword weapons, because whenever Cheetor usually has a sword or a melee weapon, it's just his tail, and it doesn't look really good. But they decided, you know what, here's some actual weapons that look good. And you can either plug them on here in his hands, and those do look really nice, or you can combine them, and it's at a way where it can only plug in one way, but just know you gotta line this up and this up, and once you do that, it's pretty easy to plug it in. And there you go. He's got this double-sided staff, and what is it with the Rise of the Beast characters having double-sided swords? I don't mind. I think it's cool as hell. And once his other arm is free, you can plug this in, and you see what I mean? It's kind of drooping. Doesn't really look that effective. Also, it's like used as a gun, but it's a sword. Why not hold it like this? Yeah, more reason why the Gator Battlemaster is infinitely better than the Cheetah one. They can plug on the back when you don't need them, and they do it very securely if you want them out of the way, which we can do so we can get on to the articulation. Like, get the fuck out of here. Head's on an actual ball joint that does move up and down, side to side, and of course left to right. He's got shoulders that move individually, so you can actually get these arms out pretty much all the way. And you can also move this upwards, so he's got really good shoulders. Despite having really awkward looking shoulders, they managed to find a way to actually make them work. Bicep swivel, and he does have a 90-degree elbow bend. Kind of looks like it should be a little better, but hey, that's fine. Wrist articulation. We're going to actually unpeg this so you can use the butt flap so we can properly utilize the leg articulation. Legs, okay, don't do that. Legs go up that high and back that far. They also go out that way. Thigh swivel. Bend in the knee. Again, it looks like it should bend farther than it actually can. Not bad though, 90 degrees is fine. And he's got a pretty good pivot that goes outwards, weirdly enough, but that's probably just for the beast mode. And he's got toe bend. So yeah, you can actually do a steppy pose. Oh, isn't that so cool? Oh, he actually, I thought I was going to make a joke where he was just going to fall over because he got tiny ass little feet, but good job, Cheetor!
I am so proud of you and you.
Oh, also, this is, this transform. Make sure that is supposed to be out like that. So in terms of articulation, it's pretty standard. However, it's pretty cool in a couple of areas like the shoulders, so I think it's pretty damn good. And that articulation goes hand in hand with the rest of the figure, which actually has a really cool feel. Though it does have a couple of swirls, so hopefully this doesn't have GPS. The texturing on this figure feels really interesting, especially on the back. It's unlike most Transformers, and I gotta be honest, not sure if it's a good thing. But hey, it feels satisfying to me, so I don't really mind. And the final thing I want to talk about is the fact that with the exception of this stupid butt flap, he doesn't even look like he transforms. He just looks like an action figure. I mean, granted, yes, he is a Cheetor transformer. Transformations are usually not very involved, but his arms and legs still go through a couple of decent engineering tricks. And his head does fold out in a pretty cool way, so you know what? There is a level of transformation to this, so pretty good accomplishment. So, overall, this Cheetor is very, very cool. He's very nice, he's very solid, his robot mode looks really cool. His transformation, while it is simple, is pretty effective, and his alt mode does look pretty cool, even if it isn't perfect. It's a really nice take on Cheetor, and I gotta say, I really do like it. And if you like this design, I think you're gonna love this figure, because it does it very nice justice. It's not as good as Scourge, but that's being unfair. That'd be like saying Kingdom Huffer is a bad toy, because it's not as good as Kingdom Cyclonus. Even though there are 5 figures that were almost as good as Kingdom Cyclonus, some of which were even better, so, I don't know, kind of shot myself in the foot with that one. But just ignore. Great figure. So that is that. Rise of the Beast, Studio Series Cheetor, and Airazor, as well as 2 Battle Masters. Gotta say, really impressed with this so far. And I can't wait to get the rest of the line. I'm really excited about that Rhinox. I had a couple of reservations at first, like his tiny legs and big body, but I actually think it kind of works. And I like how there's like no rhino head. I don't mind the rhino heads on the other ones, that's just part of the design, but the fact that they figured out a way to get rid of it, dude, I'm so excited for that figure. So, I'll see you next time with more Studio Series Rise of the Beast figure reviews. Well, not actually next time. I got stupid shit that nobody wants me to review, but you know what? I'm going to do it anyways.